Well, hello there, and welcome to my tier list of all the real-time blobbers released before year 2000. Now, I do not hate turn-based games. I probably played 2 more turn-based games than real-time. But I did grow up with Beholder, and that kind of gameplay stuck with me. I like to be able to feel that I am in a dungeon with a moving monster that moves about, and I need to dodge it, and I need to use the dungeon itself to be able to handle the monster. When a game goes into turn-based, it really changes the dynamics. Most classic turn-based role-playing games do not really take the environment into account. That means that it doesn't matter if you are standing in a corridor, if you are standing within a large room, if you are surrounded by traps, standing next to a big shaft, etc. Instead, the combat boils down to the base statistics of your characters versus the base statistics of the monsters, and the special abilities, special attacks, and special defenses that each of the groups have. The most annoying games for me are the ones where you move around the dungeon and then you are suddenly interrupted by a random encounter and you have to resolve that fight in order to get back into the dungeon. So when it comes to turn-based games, I actually prefer isometric perspective, so I can play the game like it was a board game. Also, I have a definite preference for party-based games, whether they are in first person or isometric or other kind of roleplay games. I have a real life interest in social dynamics and especially social psychology, of course. Now let's get back to the video. So I have played a lot of real-time blobbers in my day, and I decided why not play the rest of them so I can make this video. And that is what I did. I have finished 28 of these games up to the ending, and I will also mention 4 more that I didn't finish due to various difficulties, and we'll get into it. There are 5 more games that I had to exclude because they are in a language that I do not understand. I actually played even more games for this video, but I had to exclude them as well due to not really fitting the definition in the end. I have been playing these games since the 90s. Most of the games that I will cover on this list I actually finished within the last few years. However, I need to tell you that there are some games on this list that I haven't replayed since back in 2010 to 2012. That means that my memory of them might be a bit skewed. But I've tried to refresh my memory the best I could by checking in YouTube. Try to boot up the game just to find my old save file, just to get a new fresh memory of it. Okay, let's get into the definitions. What games are included in this list and what games are not included. This is going to be blobber only, which means that you need to have a first-person view. You need to move with your entire party as a cohesive blob. This needs to be a role-playing game. I will include one game that breaks this category. That would be Hybrid Guns, because if I don't mention it, it will probably be mentioned. But that is not a real blobber. And with a Dawn, Elder Scrolls Arena and Daggerfall, Elvira 1, 2, Waxworks, Lands of Lore 2, 3, Ultima Underworld 1, 2, Xenomorph. Those are some of the single-player games where you just have one character. Those will not be included in this list. Real-time combat with real movement. This means that the game needs to keep me in real time even though there is a monster nearby and I need to be able to dodge that monster. They need to be able to really side strafe or do some movement while the combat is happening, and the dungeon space that I am in is going to need to be important for me to consider the game. This means that a game like Bard's Tale would not work because it locks you up within a combat mode once you get into a fight. The same with Dungeons of the Avalon, Phantasy Star. Might have made it 3, or, well, all the way up to 8 actually. Those are going to pause the game when you are in combat. They are turn-based. So those are not going to be included. For lacking real movement, my favorite example would be Curse of Drannor, that is made from Macintosh. As soon as the fight begins in Curse of Drannor, you are locked with a monster. Besides that, you have full real-time combat, you have full movement, everything, but as soon as the fight begins, you can't move anymore. Another example would be Lords of Doom and Zombie. Here you do not have actual grid or 360 degrees movement at all. You move between rooms as preset locations. So those aren't real gridders either. I'm going to consider before year 2000 only for this list. I'm going to get into 2000 in the 2000 and beyond in another video, probably. I have a few games left to play there. This means that a game like Legend of Grimrock will not be included. Might of Magic 9 is actually a real-time movement game that would be included unless I have included beyond 2000. Wizards and Warriors you can actually set to be real-time in speed in the settings, but it's a year 2000 game, so I won't include it for this list. So those are my definitions. Let's move on. Okay, let's go into my tier list. The first section I'm going to call the curriculum. These are not necessarily the absolute best games, but they are the games that I would like you to have an opinion about. These are probably the most influential of them in one way or another. They have flaws, but I think they are influential enough to warrant your time. I think you should try them and form your own opinion about them. Then we have Rol Crusader. These games I can recommend without a doubt to just about anyone who is into dungeon crawlers. Then we have They Have Some Qualities. These are the games that I have some reservations for. They have some kind of major flaw. They are definitely not perfect, so I can't overwhelmingly recommend them. But if you are definitely into dungeon crawlers, then by all means you can check them out. I think they can be interesting by their own. The next category would be You Are On Your Own. These are games that I can't overwhelmingly recommend to you because I think they have major flaws that made me not really appreciate them for one reason or another. There are others who might enjoy these games, but I have major reservations. If you go into them, you are on your own. Don't sue me. The final category I'm going to call the Why. These are games that for one reason or another is not what I expect from a released published game. I will go into that when we go into my reviews of them. And those are my categories. Let's go on. Let's now go into the games that I had to exclude for one reason or another. First line here is going to be quite simple. They are not available in English at all, which is a problem for me because I wouldn't be able to understand them. And I am not that hardcore, so I want to play a game that I do not understand. The first game here, Arcan, I'm going to come back to that in a moment because this is the prequel to another game called Walls of Illusion. Now, Crime Crackers 1 and 2 are interesting titles to me. They are actually made for PlayStation, and they are a hybrid between blobbers and first-person shooters. I would be very happy to be able to play this one just to check it out, but I can't really understand the game because it is in Japanese only and there is no fancy translation so far. Magic Island, Sigurd of the Stones, is made in Czech Republic for the CD32. This game is very interesting to me, and this is definitely a game that I would like to try out if I was able to. I checked some gameplay videos of this. I like how the game constructs a snowy pine tree area, outdoor area, within a grid-based engine. So I definitely would like someone to make a fan translation of this one, so it would be available to me too. Rol Crusaders is a Spanish game. It plays in 360-degree movement. It reminds me a bit about Wolfenstein, actually, Blobber Wolfenstein. But it seems that the English translation is available in shareware only, and that's only the first 3 maps. So I decided I will skip it for that reason. With that covered, let's go into the game that I decided to not try to finish. Walls of Illusion is an Atari ST game, and it's the sequel to Arcan that is available in German only, but Walls of Illusion is in English. This is the first game that I will place in my tier list, and I am going to place it in a custom area. I'm going to place it far out on your own here. Now, as you might know, that Dungeon Master was originally made for Atari ST, and Atari ST have a lot of hacks and alternate versions of Dungeon Master. If I would like to, I could actually spend quite a lot of time playing through a lot of variants of Dungeon Master on the Atari ST. And people have ripped the engine apart and tried to make their own games with them. There are actually quite a lot of variants where you play one characters only in a new dungeon, but they still use the same old Dungeon Master engine. Walls of Illusion and Arcan basically rip off the entire tile set, so they use the graphics from Dungeon Master. It's like a Dungeon Master hack. The game itself can be good, I don't know, but I feel that this is more of a rip of Dungeon Master than it is a game of its own, and I found that to be a bit unethical. City Beneath the Surface I will place in You Are On Your Own. The game was made by a Finnish group, and I think this is actually the only full freeware game on my entire list. If the game was sold, even if it was just shareware, I would place this in the Y section. Code-wise, I do not see any problem with the game. Except that when there's a death animation and you move away from the square, the monster simply disappears, and that's because the monster is actually dead, and the death animation is not scalable. The game have an automap system. Every level seems to have puzzles, some of them custom for that level. And gameplay wise, I found the game quite okay actually. And since it's freeware, I feel that it belongs in your own section. Because the problem with Citadel Beneath the Surface is the graphics. The dungeon floors look really bad. This is probably the most ugly game in that regard in my entire list. Portraits look better though. And I've felt that mathematically the game presents you with different classes, with different attributes, and those seems to work. So the programmer and whoever designed the base mechanics seems to be competent. It's a shame that it didn't have better artwork. No, I managed to get around map 5-6 or so. Then the game got a bit too hard, and frankly I didn't want to continue playing it. If I ever go back to it and finish it, I will mention it in a sticky note below this video. The Dungeon is a game that I will place in the Y section, but I can easily place it higher. The reason for this is that the game have very poor artwork. It's quite bad actually. Which is a bit annoying because this is from my research. It might be the first full 3D blobber out there, made in 1993. However, it was made on Acorn Archimedes only, which is a rather obscure computer. I was able to make the game run in Arculator, thanks to another YouTuber, and I was able to write an auto-hotkey script that allowed me to have full WASD movement. And I did play the game for a while. It is a bit annoying how you attack, but you have 4 characters. Your middle 2 characters are your front row characters. So those are the only 2 who can attack and be attacked. And you're also supposed to have, you actually have 4 mages. But the problem is that I was never able to find any spell descriptions. So even if it used the same rune system as in Dungeon Master, but I was not able to cast any spell because I could not find any spell scrolls. And after playing it for a while, I got stuck, and there is almost no information about this game online, so I had to give up. And that's unfortunate. If I actually found maps for this game, I would be happy to finish it. If I actually do finish it, I will mention it in a sticky note below this video. The Infernal Tome, it's going to go in the Y section. I can't place it any lower, but it's going to be the absolute bottom. Apparently this game was published, and it seems to be published by the same person who made the game. And I don't think that it should have been sold for money. Now, first of all, the game do contain some stolen assets. It contains stolen assets from Beholder, and I think that's not excusable. But that is not the big problem. What frustrates me with Infernal Tome is that the game could have been good, because they spent a lot of time actually writing a story here. And I can tell that whoever designed this game actually knew a bit about storytelling. And there's a plot that develops slowly with twists and turns. The graphics is reasonable, not perfect, but it's reasonably good. It's better than City Beneath the Surface. However, in this case, the programmer screwed up completely. The game barely works. Actually, I am not really sure you can even finish it due to all the game-breaking bugs that are going to be up front in your face very early on. There is already, when you are in the base menu, you can see that the game doesn't move in the right speeds. It's difficult to get into the right menus. And once you are and get into the game, it's a very high chance that you run into a problem where you can't actually attack any monsters, which is very annoying. And you have to start the game over basically and import your characters if that happens. Or you can try to use spells, because spells can still kill them. I know that my fellow, may he rest in peace, Senator, gave up on the game, and I pushed a bit further into the second chapter, but eventually I ran into a situation where I just couldn't find a way to continue, and that is where I gave up. Okay, that concludes all the games that I excluded and never finished. So we are now going to go into the games that I actually did finish, and I'm going to begin with the series, and then we are going to be into the singles. Abandoned Places 1 and 2, they are going to go into they have some qualities. Abandoned Places 1 and 2 are made by Arcan, which is a Hungarian developer. They are very much made for the Amiga in mind, but the first game was also getting a DOS port. They are very different in mechanics and how the graphical interface works, and if you didn't read it from the name, you would think that they are two completely different games. They are tied together with a cohesive universe, where the gimmick is that when there's an evil facing the land, the heroes are revived. So you begin in a crypt in each game, and you need to get out of the crypt first to figure out what is going on, and find the evil and defeat the evil. Both games have an overland map, so they have several dungeons that are tied together with an overland, but that overland is very different from each other. First game is very unique compared to other dungeon crawlers. The overland map is a quite beautiful section of the game, actually. You have different vehicles that you move around with in the universe. You can travel by boat, you can travel by horse, you can travel by a balloon, actually. You go into villages, you go into dungeons, of course, you can go into caves, and you can go into different places. And you need to get into cities to be able to buy your stuff, sell your stuff. You need to find the quests that you need to do in the cities. There is also an economy system where you can gather money, you can sell things and buy things. And you need to use bars and inns to be able to sleep and to recover yourself with food. I think that aspect is very nice, actually, because it gives a very charming feel to Abandoned Places 1, and I think that's the reason why I place it in the category that I place it in. If it wasn't for that aspect, it would go lower. I also think that the artwork displayed when you are visiting in these villages and cities are pretty good. It's very Amiga artwork, and I like it. Another positive aspect about Abandoned Places is the spell system. And overall how it all fits together. You have a system where you can use water to put out fire. You can use fire to dry up water. You can use both of these to create traps and to remove traps from your path, so you can travel freely, or you can drench monsters, or you can burn monsters, or block monsters from approaching you. The way they take out each other is similar to how it works in a game like Divinity Original Sin, if you play that one. I like that aspect. There is also a push and pull system that you use for Sokoban puzzles. You can move plants around, and you need to place them correctly and move them in the right order to have it pass through the dungeon. That's a very nice puzzle, and there's also a system where you can use ropes and levitate to get up and down from pit traps. So pit traps moving up and down in the dungeon, that's a very nice mechanic that I wish that I had in more games. I think that about sums up all the positive things I have about Abandoned Places though. The main problem with Abandoned Places, well, there are several problems. First, the game window is quite small, so it's difficult to see what's going on. That should be fine, could be fine, but they also forgot to try to make the dungeons coherent with the story or theme. So you have dungeons or caves that look like libraries, for example, and that's quite immersion breaking. Even worse, the dungeon design, I think it's one of the worst dungeon designs that I have ever seen in any of these games. The main issue here is that you can do something in one side of the level, and something will open up on the very other side of the level. And that way of puzzle solving and making progress is hell to play. It's not really fun. Making things even worse, there is a problem with that game where if you have music turned on, you will not hear pressure plates triggering, and you cannot see pressure plates triggering. So you can move across a square that opens up a wall on the very other side of the dungeon, and you have no way to tell, not by sound, not by any graphical input. The only way to know is to turn off music completely and then listen to click sounds. When you hear that something have happened, you don't know where, and it can take a very long time to find out what happened. If you do not have a map available, you're probably going to run out of food. So that's a very annoying aspect of the game, and I didn't appreciate that at all. Another problem is that the characters have their XP rating separate from one another. So you have to always make sure that you try to use all 4 characters, and that's mostly annoying. I wish if you just use your spellcasting once in a while, that would be fine, but you have to continuously use all 4 characters or they will just fall behind severely. That's not really fun either. The economy system, it's a good start, but it breaks down pretty quickly where you run out of things to buy, and all the best things are available in the dungeons anyway. I don't really know what the best weapons are. There is no way to tell more than trying to guess based on when you find them. So overall, at least the game works. I couldn't see any major bugs up front. one of the more annoying aspects if you get stuck with an overland encounter. It can take a while to find the final monster, and you need to defeat all of them to be able to escape. But that's the only major issue that I found. Now, Abandoned Places 2 fixes many of these aspects, and it also make other aspects worse. The game is a lot more beautiful to watch because these have a really large user window that you can see the world in. They clearly have taken cues from Ishar or Black Crypt when they made the game. It's using the half-bright mode, I think, so it have more colors that the Amiga can normally handle. The story is presented in a much better way. The dungeons feel unique and they're well made. The dungeon puzzles are nice. I really like to play the game overall. It has the same problem with I don't really know what items are better than others, but for the most part I could figure out that this equipment is probably better than this equipment. The spell system is different. It's interesting, but I think that I prefer the spell system in the first game. But it have this spell system where you have 3 mana pools, and you need to know what spells to use to really optimize your mana. They have 3 different kinds of magicians in the game that uses 3 different strategies. I think I did a good job in my playthrough of it to manage that. What it does worse is that the overland is not at all as interesting. They clearly took the Ishar route with making the overland. It's an overland you recognize from games like Beholder Trilogy or Dungeon Master 2 or any other games that have a normal overland map, but it doesn't have the big landscape that the first game had. And the villages are completely pointless. The economy system is completely pointless. There is no point at all in collecting stuff to sell because there is nothing to buy, and you are able to max out all your food in the very first visit to the city. So you just buy a lot of fish and you eat the fish, and then you have enough food to sustain yourself for the rest of the game. So that aspect is sad. Now the reason that I can't place Abandoned Places 2 in a higher category is because the game is actually quite broken. There are 2 major issues. First is that there is a constant lag, which makes sure that you can't really move your characters any way quick. It misses input. I have tried to figure out if that is because of the emulator or because of something else, but I haven't been able to work myself around that. So the game moves very slowly, and it's very annoying that it misses input when you try to move. The other problem is that there is a problem with the audio system. So the game begins to loop audio, and it just keeps hammering and chopping audio clips, and that's hell to listen to. So those 2 issues, had those 2 be fixed, so the game moves more fluidly and the audio system would be better, then absolutely I would have placed this in a higher category. But for now it's going to remain in. They have some qualities. I would recommend checking them out if you have played everything else. They are part of the canon, in the overarching canon for Amiga at least. They exist, and if you have played everything else, do check them out. Bloodwych and the remake Hexx. I'm going to place this in you are on your own category. Let's start with Bloodwych here. The game have not aged well. The game looked like an 8-bit game. It also controls like an 8-bit game. I don't really know why, considering it's a 16-bit game. I know that there was a Amstrad version, a Sinclair version, and a C64 version. But I think that the 16-bit version should have been more optimized. I think it's a curious game though, because the game really presents the way you can create different parties, and depending on which character you select, you will have very different dynamics. I tried to set up my own party based on a strategy that looks fine on paper. But once I got into the game, I realized that the spells doesn't work as advertised, and that put an end to that. So I ran the rest of the game with an optimized party as recommended by some of the forums. I also think that the game really create a mystery about the towers, where each tower is presented differently. Once you get there though, they all look the same. Which is unfortunate. However, they do play differently. They play very differently from one another, which is a good thing. That gave some memorable moments when I encountered some of the end puzzles for the first time. And overall, I did not really hate the game once I reached the game or end of it. But I can also not fully recommend it either. The game actually deserves a real remake that really takes advantage of new graphics. Hexx is not really that remake though. Hexx is of course made a lot later on full DOS computers. It's the full 360 degree movement engine, so it's no longer a grid engine. They really optimized the graphics, they really improved the graphical appeal to the game, added a lot of extra features, but it is a remake to a fault. And what I mean to that is that it uses pretty much the same layout of the dungeons from Bloodwych. And they tried to port some of the puzzles, even though those puzzles makes no sense in the new engine. For example, you have situations where you have spinners. Spinners doesn't work in a full 360 degree movement game. You have places where you need to move over a certain grid in a certain pattern. That works terrible when you aren't actually moving in a grid, but you can actually have free movement. I did have some fun, however, to create a party, because in Hexx the spell system works. I actually tried to use a party that use Confuse together with an assassin, and that worked very good. Confuse is actually overpowered in Hexx from barely working in Bloodwych. And the way you set up your entire party to just work on auto attacks is pretty interesting, because you have a very different dynamic in that game, where things like direct control is not going to work well. Anything that would take some manual thought to set up, such as firing a fireball into a group of monsters, for example, you are not going to have enough time to do that. But anything that do not use that form of direct control, such as buffs, for example, or cheap spells that you can spam over and over again, those are going to work great if you set up a good dynamic between your parties. For the same reason, I also realized that using any form of shards or magic item, they use shards. or any spell scrolls that you just waste and consume, it's not really going to be worth your time. Instead, you can just pool all the money you have to buy permanent potions to pump up your strength value, your hit point value, your mana, and your intelligence, because those are going to be continuously used in every combat, and they are used automatically, they replenish automatically, much easier to use than use magic items with shards. Hexx actually reminded me of playing old MMO RPGs, such as the Star Wars Galaxies, where you set up scripted attacks that we would just spam over and over again. So in summary of these two games, Bloodwych haven't aged well. It would benefit from having a real remake, but as I said, Hexx is not really that remake. Captive 1 and 2, Liberation. Captive will go into You Are On Your Own, and Liberation will go into The Why. Once again, we have two different games that begins with the same name, Captive and Captive 2 Liberation. This time, Liberation is a direct sequel to Captive, but they have very little in common. One thing they do have in common is that they are both modern games. They are definitely based on a science fiction universe, and that sets it apart from almost every other games in this entire video. Now let's go into Captive first. Captive is overall a pretty good game actually. It's just that it is based on procedural generation, which I don't really like. The lack of a story narrative that I can follow, the computer generated dungeons that takes me out of the game and do not make me feel as invested as I am in, for example, Temple of Darkmoon. But the game does work, and it is a very advanced game actually. The graphics is quite good, pixelated. Andrew Crowther, who also were behind Knightmare, was an excellent programmer. But the whole effort on trying to make a procedurally generated game, I think that's a waste of time. And I definitely do not appreciate Captive as much as I do Knightmare that isn't based on procedural generation. Now the game is very hard if you don't really know how to play it. I tried my best to follow input from other players, and I was able to reach the end of the first mission, and that is where I concluded the game. I thought that, okay, I've beaten the first mission, I am fine with that. And upon doing so, I got a single screen that just told me that I won. Yay. And by selecting a different option in the end, you just reboot the mission into a new one. 4 different droids that you can upgrade, pretty much quite a lot, with a lot of different weapons and armors and body parts. That is a big aspect of the game. So, the game is good if you like this style of games. I did not really appreciate my playthrough of it. I did not have fun. That is why I place it in the category where I place it. Now it might surprise some people that I rip on Liberation as hard as I do, or it might not be surprising at all. I actually created a long play of Liberation. I actually created the maps of the entire first mission. And the walkthrough that someone wrote referenced me and my video. I did my best to figure the game out. I did so in the intention to really understand the game, because the game have been a curiosity for me for a very long time. The fact that it is an open world, dungeon crawler, cyberpunk game is having an incredibly strong appeal to me. The fact that it is a mystery game where you go around searching for clues, that also a big bonus to me. The introduction is fantastic. It is one of the best intros in the entire Amiga library. It was also one of the first fully texture mapping exclusive Amiga games in the generation where Doom was very popular. But the game absolutely sucked. And I actually feel that it is better a game. It is an engine that have a lot more need of polish and actually filling it with content. I will try to explain the core issue here between Captive and Liberation, because Captive is a functional game, it is a real game, and Liberation is really not. As a procedurally generated game, Captive consists of a lot of parts that is randomly put together into a cohesive experience. You have some traps, you have some monsters, you have some reoccurring issues that you need to deal with to get you to the end of each area. And Captive gets progressively harder and harder the longer you come. It have quite a good evolution of the enemies that you face, because they get harder. But you also get better and better weapons throughout the game. So that's actually a reason to use it, like if it was Diablo, where you just beef up your droids, get better, and defeat better and better foes. And you actually need to be strong to be able to beat the final mission, the space station in Captive. Liberation missed that aspect entirely. You can pretty much buy up the best items in the game in the first map, and it takes almost no effort whatsoever combat-wise to get to the very end of the first mission. And when you play on, the game do not really get progressively harder, because in Liberation you can access the entire map from the beginning. And the only thing you can go into are houses, and the houses are generated with the same seeds. And all they contain are some mediocre enemies and some credit cards. Nothing really interesting to explore here. And you can play in most of the games just buy the best weapons you can, go into some buildings to get some credit chips, and you can buy the best in the game. And then the rest of the game is just finding where the next clue is, and that's usually just go to one place to follow out to the next place, to the next place, to the next place. Overall, Liberation is not the game that I want it to be, and it is one of my biggest disappointments of the entire Amiga history I have. But there is a modern PC game available on Steam called Shadows of a Doubt. Someone pointed that out when I did a remake of my Liberation review. And that's actually true. That game do offer the kind of experience that Liberation is supposed to deliver. The only issue with Shadows of Doubt is that it's not a cyberpunk game. On the other hand, it's hard to say that Liberation is much of a cyberpunk game as well. There are a lot more things like movement and people blocking you and other things that I can go into that have problems with Liberation, but I think you got the point. So let's move on. Dungeon Master. The first game absolutely go into curriculum section. It have actually aged remarkably well, even though the graphics is a bit aged. The pure gameplay makes it a very important game to study. Chaos Strikes Back have some qualities, but I leave that up to you after you finish the first game. And both Dungeon Master 2 Skullkeep and Dungeon Master Nexus absolutely belongs in the crawler connoisseur category. I am actually tempted to play Dungeon Master Nexus in the curriculum section. The problem is that since the game was never published outside Japan, it didn't have the influence on the Western market as it deserved. Now, I didn't play Dungeon Master 1 until 2012, and compare that to Beholder, which was finished way back in the 90s. I didn't feel that the game had aged well. I thought that the graphics was quite poor, but I still felt that, okay, this is the first Blobber ever, so I kind of need to check it out, what it was all about. And I actually played Chaos Strikes Back right after. What I found when I actually began playing the game is that the game have aged remarkably well. Even though the dungeons might look quite grey, they are actually very well designed. And in the end, the graphics actually didn't bother me that much. And beyond the dungeon design, the way they set up classes and leveling up and all the things that you can do with the characters is really ahead of this time. We are speaking about a game that originally came out in 1987. And you can really find that many games from 1997 that are so easy to control and to figure out. This does not have the issues that they have with Bloodwych, for example. Chaos Strikes Back, that's more up to you. It is an expansion set or standalone expansion. But it is also story-wise the direct sequel to Dungeon Master. So if you liked the first Dungeon Master, still enjoy playing it, I absolutely think you should play Chaos Strikes Back as well. But I leave that up to you. The game actually presented some new features such as random dungeons, but they are not procedurally generated. Rather, there are a few couple of variants of the dungeon that will change of every playthrough, but if you have played it over and over again, you can see that there is only a few different variations of it. So if you're into dungeon crawlers, you shouldn't really let the game's age or graphics hold you back. It's worth checking out and learning about how the game operates, even if you are designing your own dungeon crawlers. This is truly the predecessor to every other game in the genre. Now, Dungeon Master 2 Skullkeep is a whole other story. I actually finished this game way back in 2010, prior to the original Dungeon Master. And I think overall that Skullkeep is a predecessor to Legend of Grimrock 2 in how the map is designed. I have this overarching map, outdoor area with the Skullkeep itself in the middle. And then you are going to initially visit several locations that are located to the south, north, east, west, until you can finally access the Skullkeep itself. The graphics was stunning. For example, the DOS version have animated inventory icons, which is really cool. And this game also contains some of my favorite music of the entire dungeon crawler genre. They kept how the classes works and how the characters works that you recruit, which I think was a good decision. And overall, I think that the Dungeon Master 2 Skullkeep is one of the best games in the entire genre. I would not have mind a real Dungeon Master 3 based on the same engine as the second one, in which the story is continued or for another quest. But that is not how history played out. Okay, and now Dungeon Master Nexus. This is of course a game that was only released in Japan for the Sega Saturn, so getting my hands of it took a long time. And it's of course thanks to a fan patch. Now, Dungeon Master Nexus, I would have placed this game in curriculum if it wasn't for the fact that the game was not accessible in English until very recently. It was also only made on Sega Saturn that had difficulties to get a good emulator. So it's now, 20 years later, that we have the chance to play it. Please do so. I was amazed how good that game actually is. This is the first game since Legend of Grimrock 2 that gave me a sense of dread for being in a deep down dark dungeon. It looks actually quite good. The way they have constructed this game is made with love. It's a very high quality game. It takes a while to get used to the controller, but once you get used to the controller, you feel that okay, this is a very good standard for creating a dungeon crawler in 360-degree movement using a controller to control it. The game works. The game is really well planned out. It's very well presented. I think it's a shame we didn't get this game translated and ported into English, because this absolutely would have benefited the evolution of the genre. Of course, the game is not perfect. It is a game for a night. If you're new to the role-playing genre, you should probably play Legend of Grimrock 2 first. But you should check this out if you're a fan of the genre. If they do create another Dungeon Master, I do wish them to include Dungeon Master Nexus as part of the canon. Now, one more thing. There is this term called JRPG. In the way I understand that term, Dungeon Master Nexus is a Western RPG in its core design. It doesn't matter if Dungeon Master was made in Asia. It doesn't matter if it's a Japanese made game. It doesn't matter if it has anime faces. It's still a Western RPG in my book. So that concludes my rambling on Dungeon Master. If you thought I would rip on every game on my list, you might be happy that we are now going to go into some of the very best in genre. The Eye of Beholder Trilogy. I would place all three in the curriculum category because I think they should all be played as a trilogy. But the third game have some issues that we need to talk about, and I will do so in the review section. So we play that in the connoisseur section. I Beholder Trilogy. I think you should play all three games as the trilogy. I don't think that the I Beholder 3 should be separated like other people say. I think they should be played all three together. The first two games are, of course, the peak of the genre, or rather the most genre-defined games of all time. Maybe the game that can compete with the top position to Dungeon Master. They are Eye Beholder is immediately accessible. It's very easy to get into, very easy to control. You figure it out right away. If you know the Dungeons and Dragons system, a second edition, you probably get into very early on what's good and what's bad in the game to use. This is the game that really made the use of inventory icons that you can click drag to other spaces to use. Presentation is fantastic. The story is really good as well. The only issue with Beholder 3 as a story is that it's not as good as Beholder 2. It's still a really good game of its own. So even if you place it lower than the other two, it's still a great game. And if you look into the engine, Beholder 3 is actually superior than the first two. This has to do with the limitations of the engine Beholder 1 and 2, where we are not able to really implement a lot of the features that classes have, races have, and monsters have. And they actually did a very good job at implementing them in Beholder 3, which is why Beholder 3 requires a lot more thought about how to defeat certain monsters. It requires more strategic thinking and planning things out than the other two games do. I love all three of them. That should be obvious. You should check out my master playthrough because I put down a heck of a lot of effort in gathering information about each level. So I provide you more than just a playthrough on those. I have heard even from people who are not into dungeon crawlers, they still enjoy those videos because all of extra information that I provide in those playthroughs I made. That's all I can say about our Beholder. I think that I can't really speak much about it because there is too much already said. So let's move on. The Ishar series by Stelmaris, there are 3 of them. I will place the first 2 games in the curriculum section with the caveat that they might better belong in the Crawler Connoisseur. And I will play Ishar 3 in the Crawler Connoisseur. We will get into why. The Ishar games trilogy actually. Here's my problem with this trilogy, it's that I haven't really played the games since 2010. So my memory might be a bit skewed. But I think that Ishar 1 and 2 at least belongs in the curriculum category because the outer areas in Ishar is genre defining. These are very beautiful games to study how to make outdoor areas. Overall, the design of the landscape of Ishar 1 is very good. I think Ishar 2 is pretty good at that as well. Even Ishar 3 is interesting. Now, before I made this video, I had to go back to just boot them up, try them a bit, check some long plays just to refresh my memory. And yes, the games have flaws. One issue is that you actually need money to save your game, which is an annoying feature that I wish they could have just removed. You can of course use a save state in WinUIA to be able to pass that one. I usually play the Amiga version. Another issue is that each of the game have people you need to recruit temporarily, and when you do, you have to sacrifice a character that you have to kick out of your group, and you can't get them back later, which is sad affairs. Another issue is that the game is brutally hard. It will take a while to get used to the difficulty curve. And since you can't save regularly in a normal way, that might throw you off. I think that Ishar 3 used digitized faces, and that's a technology I don't really like. So I can't really recommend Ishar 3 as high as the first two. It's also a bit different because there we are playing mostly within a big city. And unlike Ravenloft and Beholder, you can't really import characters from one game to another in Ishar. But I think that if you are into dungeon crawlers, yes, the Ishar series should of course be very high on your list. Once you be able to walk around the problems, they are worth your time, I think. The Ravenloft series. The main reason to place Ravenloft 1 in the curriculum setting is because you benefit from having played that and import your characters into Stone Prophet. Because Ravenloft 2 is a curriculum game, it is S tier. It's one of the best games of the entire genre. Ravenloft 1 and 2. The engine are a bit different, but you can really see that they started to make a new kind of role-playing game with Ravenloft, and they improved on it and really mastered the engine in Ravenloft 2. So let's begin with the first one. I think that overall the game is actually really well made. I only regret that I took so long to get into these games, because it's a quite interesting story. You have several dungeons, and you have this outdoor area as well, and as 360-degree gridders, that they worked very well. You don't need to enable the grid movement. You can just enjoy them in 360 degrees. Story of the Ravenloft Strahd Procession is pretty good. I like it. They have beautiful graphics. The voice acting is a bit sketchy at times, but I still like it. Story is also a bit sketchy at times, but I still like it. It's not a perfect game for any means. I would play it in a lower tier unless I had to place it right up, because you mostly play the Strahd possessions to build up your characters to be able to import them into Stone Prophet. And I think you should play them in order. So you play the first one first, then you enjoy Stone Prophet. Stone Prophet is where things really shine. I think this is one of the best RPGs in 1994. What this game does is that it provides you with a vast, large outdoor area. And there you have several places that you can go into. Each one gives a very unique dungeon experience. And you can really tell that, okay, now I am in a pyramid, and this pyramid looks unique. It have a unique quality to it. And now I am in a temple, and it's again have a very unique quality to it. So each of the places you visit, they feel like real places. And it's a very interesting storyline, good voice acting. And it's very, very creepy to walk around this mysterious Egyptian themed place. And Stone Prophet is actually nowadays one of my favorite dungeon crawlers of all time. I was really happy to play it. Of course, if you saw my playthrough, you know that there is an issue with combining haste and the scimitar speed that is make the scimitar speed very overpowered. But I can't rate the rest of the game because of that. I think it's an excellent game, and if you play this, I think that Ravenloft and Stone Prophet Surf Assassin and Stone Prophet, those are genre defining for 360-degree games. And I think that these two should be played by everyone who is into dungeon crawlers. Wales Voyage 1 and 2, the Übermacht, the Übermacht. These are going to go into the Y section. I will get into Y in the review. Wales Voyage. Where to begin with this series? I have placed them in the Y section because they shouldn't have been published in the state that they are in. I could also place it in they have some qualities, but I don't want to recommend these games. But the games are charming because they are so silly, and there are so many weird scenes that are just memorable long after you played it. And it's more fun to experience it, I think, that actually it is to play it. The game begins with you ending up combining your finances to buy a ship, and you accidentally buy a ship called the Whale. That's really pumped up almost as if it is a character, and you have the Whale in both the first and the second game. In the second game, your party decided to party. So you wake up drunk and you have your cargo hold full with radioactives that you need to ship off somehow, and you can't just land because you don't have permission. Then you need to go to the other side of the galaxy to get permission. There are so many stupid and funny scenes in these games, but they play more like adventure games. It's actually sold as a gimmick that they are supposed to be space trading simulators combined with dungeon crawlers. The dungeon crawler system barely works. You can't really fight properly in the game. Most of the skills end up useless and unused because the user interface is so badly done. Wales Voyage 2 have a lot better interface, so it actually works. And unlike the first game, is a full 3D game that time. But both games barely have any fights at all. Only 3 or 4 or so. But that also includes the end fight in Wales Voyage 2 that is actually unwinnable unless you have the right skills at that point, or end up exploiting. And very few times you actually need to use your ship in space combat. The game tried to do a lot, but every system is just badly made and broken. When you first open up the game, you think that this have a real advanced character creator system, but that's also broken. It's very easy to exploit. You can max out your stats easily just by going back and forth in it. I do appreciate the graphics though. It does have pretty good graphics, and the voices are pretty nice addition as well. The music in Wales Voyage 1, especially if you have the PC version, is really dope. Love that music. But in the CD32 version, they haven't even implemented the music. You think that the CD32 version should be superior, but it isn't. The PC version is vastly superior. You can also import your characters to Wales Voyage 2 in the PC version. Can't do that in Amiga version though. Voyage 2 actually absolutely look a lot better on the DOS version than it does on the Amiga version. Even though it took a while to get both Voyage 2 translated. The PC version is actually translated on the disc, so it's more of a hack to pick up that translation and force it into the game. And it's not fully made because the ending in Voyage 2 is not translated. And the Amiga version is fan translated, but the Amiga can't really handle that type of 3D game. Overall, I think that I can't recommend Voyage 1 and 2, but on the other hand, I also want to recommend these games. You have to experience them. You can check my playthrough of them if you like, or you can get into them and try them out, but don't sue me. Okay, that handles all the series. Now I think we are going to get into the singles that only had a single game in its series. The Crypt goes into the Crawler Connoisseur category. This is one of the better games in the entire genre. It was made by Raven Software, who later made games like Hexen and Heretic. There were also a DOS version in production, but it never reached beyond demo stage. I don't think it's as iconic as the Master and Beholder, but it is definitely worth your time, definitely worth playing. The graphics in Black Crypt was really high class. All the character portraits look great. The monster design looked great. Especially the inventory icons look very well drawn. The game used a half-bright mode for Amiga, which means that it uses more colors that the Amiga is actually capable of normally. It uses some pretty advanced coding as well, especially for the spell effects. And there are also special effects for presenting text, for example, that scrolls very fluidly over the screen. The game is fairly long, a bit longer than what iBeholder is actually. It took me 3 hours to get through my playthrough of the game, and I did that pretty optimized. It was also hard if you didn't know what to do. I think that there were many people who tried it out and they wouldn't be able to pass the second stage because there is a monster there that takes a special weapon to defeat, and if you don't know that, you end up stuck. And there is a few later levels that have really annoying enemies, such as invisible enemies or enemies that steal your stuff and things like that. The game was actually one of the first that featured a full auto-map function, and that was appreciated. You also have the very different, a lot of different walls, so you really felt a difference, especially when you went after the lieutenants, the mini-bosses in the second half of the game. So, Black Crypt is a really good game, well worth it. I do not see any problem with it. You should definitely check it out if you are into dungeon crawlers. Crystal Dragon goes into Crawler Connoisseur. Crystal Dragon easily belongs in my favorite dungeon crawlers of all time. It actually turned up very late in the dungeon crawler genre, so it was not that popular when it was released, and that is a shame because the game do a lot of things to renew the genre. It do a different thing with combat that I actually like because it works very well. Rumor has it that the designer didn't get much pay for this game due to the publisher running out with the money, and that's too bad. I really like the overall story. The game makes every level feel unique, and there is always something new on every level to find out. The game contains an unusual amount of special characters that you are going to face one by one and take out, and most of the boss fights feels different. Once you figure it all out, you are of course able to beat them quite easily, but it takes a while. The game is hard before you actually figure it out. There is also issue with the spell casting, because the spells are very underpowered in the game, unfortunately. And if you're making a magician to get those legendary magic spells that you get later on, you're going to be disappointed because they really suck. You really want a fighter and a cleric, and there's I use the canon characters in my playthrough. The game comes with this long novel that you can read through the story in the manual, and that the story is quite well written actually, and it involves 2 characters that you can also play in game. And the main villain is a real villain. That's a really uncomfortable character if you actually read the presentation of him. Overall, Crystal Dragon I think should be very high on your list on the games to play if you are interested in this genre. Evil's Doom I will play in the Crawler Connoisseur category. Evil's Doom is quite unique on my list because it was actually never published. It was developed by a Croatian team called Olympia. And there were 2 reasons that the game went unpublished. The first one is that they planned to do a special edition that was going to contain a lot of extra stuff, such as 256 color graphics, 3D engine for dungeons, animated character portraits, and a few things like that. But that never happened. The other reason is that the last the last beta version could not be beaten due to a bug in the game. However, a lot later someone fixed that bug in the beta version, and that made the game fully playable from start to finish, and Evil's Doom is a really great game. So it's such a shame that it was never really published officially, because it is a good game. I really enjoy playing it, and I have a full long play of it. The character faces are beautifully drawn. The way you interact with the game is actually quite good. When the game begins, you have to go around villages and cities just to recruit a party, usually through a dialogue where you get a presentation about who they are. The dungeons are found beautiful even though they are locked to 16 colors grayscale. The inventory icons are really well made. Overall, the story is very well presented. Although some of the characters behave a bit silly. The music and the scenes that are playing when you are on the overland, that's also very good. So Evil's Doom definitely belongs in the games that you should try and play. Arcan, I will play it in the Crawler Connoisseur category. Now, Arcan is not a real blobber, as your characters are controlled through 4 different windows and can move separately from one another. but it's often considered a party-based RPG for the Amiga. That's why I include it in this list, because I know that if I don't include it, someone will mention it. It's barely even an RPG, although the characters you select from are different from another. There are, for example, some characters that are robots who can survive underwater, and there are characters that are stronger so they can carry more, and characters who are more agile, which means that they can survive jumping from higher positions. Unlike most games on this list, this game is actually set in a sci-fi universe, which means that you have access to guns. And you also have some magic abilities, or kind of magic abilities, where you use psi powers that can really be very helpful. The game is more tactical in nature, reminding a bit about games like Rainbow Six or SWAT. And you really need to, in each map, find out where the choke points are and set up your characters facing in the right direction so they are prepared if monsters come running about. And the maps they created for the game are really well made. Each map play out very differently, it requires very different tactics. And I also told this continuous story that kept me invested in the game. I actually prefer to play the Amiga version for once, and this is the only game that I can think of where the audio is what made me pick the Amiga version over the PC version, even though the PC version have better graphics. I think that if you are a fan of this genre, you should definitely check out Higher Grounds. Even if you are a fan of games like Rainbow Six or SWAT, you should probably check it out too, because it's more similar in that regard to those. This is a tactical game more than an RPG. Now, Arrogance actually got a sequel in development, although that was cancelled, so it was never released. The beta version of the sequel was released online, and I've tried it. I have a bit difficulties to get the game to run, though. The game requires special screen modes, and I have difficulties to get that compatible with my 3-monitor setup. It also plays a bit differently because it seems to be more of a first-person shooter now. But if I do get it to run properly, I would be very interested to play it. Knightmare I will place in You Are On Your Own. Although I am tempted to place it in They Have Some Qualities. Knightmare is a nightmare. It is actually a quite good game once you get into it, but it is super hard. It is the hardest role-playing game made for Amiga. It might be actually one of the hardest role-playing games I've ever beaten in my entire life. This is the Dark Souls of the 90s. It's dark, it's brutal, it's very hard, and it's very easy to get to a stage where you just can't go on. It's actually made based on a TV series that I can't really see in the game, though. The game plays out as a fantasy game where you visit several locations you need to get into and find some relics. But there are some oddities, like many of the characters that you play look like kids. You find equipment to use that look like modern items, such as a baseball. Of course, I don't think a kid would use a kitchen knife or a chainsaw, but that's in the game. To figure out how you grind and improve your characters is a whole project in itself, as part of what makes it so difficult to handle. And you really need to know that to be able to build your characters, and you really need to build your characters because you're facing very tough foes from early on. The game was coded by Anthony Crowther, which is a very famous coder who made actually several games on this list. Although I actually don't like the others, such as Captive. They were made more with a procedural generated content in mind. Knightmare is not. It is a well-designed game. The dungeons are well-designed. And they are unique in flavor from one another. I actually got the game back when I was a kid, and it was the only game that we ever returned to the store because it was too hard to me. So when I finally finished it, it was one of my happiest achievements in this entire project I had done. And for that reason, I think that the game is worth it for those who want to play this kind of games. So it's somewhere in the middle of this game do have a quality and you are on your own, because it will punish you, it will make you cry. but if you can manage to get through it, that's a rewarding experience. Are you the kind of person who would play a game like Dark Souls, then you're maybe a person who could play Knightmare. Lens of Lore, the Throne of Chaos, I will play in the curriculum setting, but I am tempted to push it down to Crawler Connoisseur. We will get into it. Lens of Lore is a game that I acknowledge that it is often celebrated as one of the best dungeon crawlers of all time. I personally don't enjoy the game as much as I wish I did. The games to me have made the flaws that limits my enjoyment with the game. The game, I appreciate that the game is using real pixelated art that is beautiful to look at. The presentation of this game is fantastic. It looks really good. I like the cutscenes that they created. I like how the scenes are played out. I like 3D view. I like the dungeon graphics. I like the way the equipment is drawn. So everything is beautiful. And it plays very well for what it is. What I don't really appreciate with it is that it is very forced. You have a very specific way you need to recruit your characters and companions, and you can also only keep them temporarily. And that gets annoying to me because I want really to be able to have my party in control. This aspect is very close to Stonekeep, that I have placed very low on my list due to the similar problems that I have with Lens of Lore. But overall, I think that it is a game that, yes, you should probably play it and make your own educated opinion about it. That is why it is in the curriculum section. It is a legendary game. It is probably one of the most well presented dungeon crawlers of all time. So the fact that I didn't appreciate it as much as I hope I did shouldn't hold you back. The game, of course, then continued to not be even a blobber in the second game or the third game. So those are just first-person single character games. I didn't really, I don't really like that as much. And eventually Westwood fell into obscurity, and the series was over. And I think that it had something from the start that it quickly lost, and that's unfortunate. Menzoberranzan, I'm going to play in You Are On Your Own category. Menzoberranzan is supposed to be about Dristörden by R.A. Salvatore. This is of course one of the most famous Dungeons & Dragons characters of all time. It was made by Dreamforge, that also made games like Veil of Darkness, Dungeon Hack, Sanitarium, Anvil of Dawn. So they had a lot of heavy hitters actually. The game seems to be part of the Ravenloft series because it's very similar. It's used the same engine, but the game is really bad compared to the others. There is a game to be had. There is the characters are well designed. The character portraits are well made. And there are a lot of cutscenes. However, playing the actual game is dreadful. The dungeons in Menzoberranzan are not at all as nicely polished as Ravenloft is, or Beholder for that matter, the other first-person SSI games. Instead, you have this empty, long cave systems and dungeons that all look the same, with low resolution textures covering everything and off colors. Those levels are really boring to explore, and since the most of the game is like that, the game is not really fun compared to the Ravenloft series that were actually very well made. I overall think that Menzoberranzan was a cash grab. It had that feeling of it. They could have polished it a lot more and made a good game of it, but I don't think they really understood how to use a 3D engine correctly. So that is a shame. That's why I will place this in your only own. If you have played Ravenloft 1 and 2 and think you are going to get more of the same in Menzoberranzan, well, try it out. Don't say I didn't warn you. I know that there are different opinions. There are some people that enjoy Menzoberranzan, but I surely didn't. Okay. Stonekeep I'm going to place in They Had Some Qualities. Stonekeep stands out in many ways compared to the other crawlers on the list that have been covered. It pops up very late in the genre, and it's probably one of the last of the original generation. At least until you get into the 3D crawlers, of which there were a few coming up late in the 90s. The game had a very troubled production. It took a lot of time to finally get to the stores, and it relied heavily on a few graphical technologies that I don't really like, such as full motion video and pre-rendered 3D graphics. The game is also not really having full movement that I would like, because it does not have any strafing. But it does allow you to turn very quickly, that allows you to confuse monsters when you use it. But when you try to move around, the game really moves at a snail pace. It takes a while just because the game have this slow crawl movement between tiles. Now, I almost didn't cover Stonekeep at all this list. I was not really planning to play Stonekeep, but the coordinator of the Dungeon Crawler community pointed out that this is actually a blobber. I thought it was a one character game only. But the game presents you with an actual party, similar to how Lance of Lore does it, but you have less control over your party members than in Lance of Lore. Characters are pretty fleshed out though. They interact with the environment and they make commentary of what happens when you play. But the party really uses AI to make automatic attacks on your sides. And what you do have control over is how you equip them. You need to make sure that they have the right weapons and they need to have good armor. And you need to heal them if they go down. Now I can feel that the game have enough quality to it to actually make me like it in the end, but I did have a lot of struggle getting into it. So I can't really place it among the games that I do recommend overwhelmingly. I think that's enough speaking about Stonekeep. Okay, so that finally concludes the entire tier list here. That was 32 games covered, excluding the ones that are in a different language. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. It's one that I have been working for a long time, considering I actually had to play all the games too. And who knows, if I replayed some of the older ones, maybe my opinion had been different now. Now, before I leave the video, I want to just mention quickly what I consider about the games beyond year 2000. First of all, Steam Greenlight appeared about 2012, and I think that was a major shift in how PC games were made. From Greenlight on, we have a return of a lot of genres that was considered dead. And with that, of course, we got Gledden and Grimrock, which is a new standard for how these games are supposed to be made. Between year 2000 up to Steam Greenlight, there are only 4 games that fits the entire definitions that I have put up. Those 2 are Cadalia, 2012. Mazes of Fate, although Mazes of Fate have 2 versions. The Game Boy Advance version is a grider, and the DS version is a 360-degree movement. Then you have Might and Magic 9, which is actually a real-time blobber, unlike every other game in the series. And finally you have Wizards and Warriors. The rumors has it that you can set that game in real time in the setting. I'm also tempted to include The Legacy by Redshift here, even though it's turn-based. It actually feels like it was a real-time game based on how the game is constructed. We also have the game Demise and Minions of Mirth, where those are online games, and from what I gather they are not really having the kind of structured storyline that I seek in these kinds of games. We will see. Technically, Demise had its origin in 1999, but at that point it was not really developed, so it's definitely a much later game now. Right, I think I can finally conclude this video here. So thanks a lot for watching, if you are still watching. Some of these games that I haven't been played on the channel yet, maybe I will. But I also want to play some other genres now. So with all that said, I will see you in the next video. Bye.